Hi, I am Emireth Castro, and in this video I will walk through a detailed code review of my Grazioso Salvare rescue animal management system. I will evaluate the code based on the CS499 code review checklist, demonstrating how my implementation meets or fails each criterion and explains my enhancement plans. We will walk through the checklist items to check the structure and maintainability of the code. Does the code completely and correctly implement the design? Yes, all classes are implemented as planned. For example, dog and monkey extend functionality described in the design document. As you can see, the code structure supports the required functionality. For example, the intake of dogs and monkeys, for example. The next item is, does the code conform to any pertinent coding standards? As you can see, the code uses Java naming conventions, so yes. It applies indentation and readability and encapsulates data using private variables and public getters, such as public rescue animal, for example. Our next item is the code well structured, consistent in style, and consistently formatted? The answer is yes. Indentation, spacing, and layout follow standard Java style. The method definitions are clearly separated. Comments explain functionality. And logic is organized into manageable blocks. For example, the intake dog, intake a new dog, and intake of a monkey. And the methods follow a similar structure with input prompts and validation logic. Now, let's look if there are any uncalled for or unneeded procedures for any unreachable code. As you can see in the code, the application does not contain unreachable code or unused methods. Each function in the driver class serves a purpose. However, reserve animals and print animals are currently stops, and enhancing them would fully complete the design. Which led us to, are there any leftover thoughts or test routines in the code? Yes. As mentioned before, partially reserved animals and print animals still contain placeholder print statements like functionality is pending implementation. This should be replaced with working logic for production level readiness. Now, our next item is, can any code be replaced by calls to external reusable components or library functions? There are no significant violations here. The logic basic is appropriate and has commanding lines. Yet, parsing and validating input could use helper methods. Now, we need to see if there are any blocks of repeated code that could be condensed into a single procedure. When we look through our code, in the driver class, you can see that both the intake dog and the intake new monkey perform similar input gathering. So, OWL said yes, you could subtract the shared logic into reusable methods or use inheritance polymorphism for shared intake behaviors. Our next item, is the storage used efficient? The answer is yes. The program uses ArrayList dogs and ArrayList monkey to manage in-memory records efficiently. With simple object references rather than storing redundant values. Are symbolic constants used instead of magic numbers or string constraints? The answer is no. The program uses inline strings like intake, in service, instead of constants. For instance, strings like species, types, and statuses are hard-coded. I plan to replace this with enums or constants. Our next checklist item is, are any modules excessively complex and should be restructured or split into multiple routines? No. Each method handles one concern and is under 50 lines. Now let's check the checklist. Yes, the code structure supports require. Now we're gonna check the checklist. Yes, the code structure supports the required functionality. Yes, there could be some improvements to naming consistency. Yes, the code is well structured. It has indentation. It has capitalization properly. And no, there are no uncalled methods. And yes, there are some stubs that can be refactored. And yes, some components can be replaced for enhancement. Yes, there are some repeated code that can be refactored. Yes, the storage is used efficiently. There are no magic numbers. And no. The program works under 50 lines. Now we're gonna take a look at the documentation in the program. For documentation, is the code clearly and adequately documented with an easy to maintain commenting style? Let's take a look at our code. As you can see, each class method has Java doc inline comments describing its function, so yes. Are all comments consistent with the code? As you can see here, yes, the comments align with the current logic and no outdated comment exists. Now let's check our checklist for documentation. Yes, the code was easy to maintain and all the comments were consistent with the code as well. Now let's take a look at the variables of the checklist. Are all variables properly defined with meaningfully consistent and clear names? Yes, the variables are descripted, like dog list, monkey list, that they clearly describe the purpose, and attributes such as training location, training start, training end. In the rescue animal class reflect the data they serve, promoting readability. Variables such as tail length, in the monkey class are descriptive and consistent with class level fields. Are global variables used only when appropriate? Yes. As you can see, the code uses static variables like dog list and monkey list. To maintain system-wide accessibility. There are no unnecessary global variables present. Are data types appropriate for the values they store? Yes. All variables, whether class fields or method calls, are initialized before access. For example, the string name in the public monkey constructor, initializing the class fields properly in both dog and monkey. There are no redundant or unused variables. All declared fields in classes are used within constructors and accessors. Now let's go back to the checklist. So, yes, all the variables have meaningful, consistent, and clear key names. All the same variables are consistent. And no, they're not redundant or unused variables. Now we're gonna go through the arithmetic operations of the checklist. The first item on the checklist is, does the code avoid comparing floating point numbers for equality? Yes, no floating points comparisons are made directly. The code avoids directly comparing floating points numbers such as weight, for instance, in both dog and monkey class, the weight attribute is captured as a string and parsed only for display or storage. Does the code systematically prevent rounding errors? No. Decimal inputs like weight are treated as strings or floats but not calculated. Does the code avoid additions and subtractions of numbers with clearly different magnitudes? Yes, the program uses many arithmetic operations that mix numbers with different magnitudes. For example, monkey class attributes like tail length, height, body length are stored as strings or integers but not manipulated mathematically to expression. Are divisors tested for 0 or no? No, not applicable for this case. There are no divisions or calculations in the code base that will require testing for divide by zero errors. However, in the future enhancement involving things like average weight or weight analysis, adding checks before division will be recommended to save our routine readability. Now let's go through the checklist of the arithmetic operations. Okay. Yes, the code avoids comparing floating point numbers for equality. Yes, the code prevents rounding errors. Yes, the program does not currently use arithmetic operation that mixes numbers with different magnitudes, and this is not applicable. Now we're gonna go through the checklist of loops and branches. Now let's take a look at the loops and branches. Checklist. Are all loops, branches, and logic constructs complete, correct, and properly nested? Yes, all switch and if-else blocks in driver Java are well structured. In the driver class, the main loop is a do-while loop that continuously presents the menu and processes user input until the user chooses to quit by entering queue. The branching is handled using a well-structured switch statement. Each case corresponds to a valid menu from 1 through 6 and queue, and all logic is nested cleanly within its case block. The approach ensures both clarity and correctness of execution flow. Next item, are the most common cases tested first in if-else chains? Yes. The menu-driven logic does not use if-else chains, but the switch structure achieves the same result, with a direct mapping of each command. Since the most common user paths intake dog, intake monkey are listed in both the menu and the switch, the program optimizes readability and user experience. Next item, are all cases covered in an if-else if or case block including else or default clauses? Yes. The switch statement includes a default clause that handles any invalid input. This ensures robust input validation and prevents undefined behavior. For instance, if the user enters 10 or any non-listed character, they get a clear message, like invalid option, please try again. Does every case statement have a default? Yes, as shown above, the inclusion of the default ensures the switches handles all possible inputs, even invalid ones. This guards against unhandled cases and contributes to a reliable user interface loop. Are loop terminations conditions obvious and invariable achievable? Yes, the loop continues as long as the user does not enter Q. The condition is simple, clear, and reachable. Through an obvious user interaction, typing Q from the menu. As you can see, on our testing of the program. Are indexes or subscripts properly initialized just prior to the loop? It's not applicable. The code does not use array indexes or subscripts inside the loop. Can any statement that are closed within loops be placed outside the loops? No necessary repetition exists inside the loop. The menu displayed input, collection, and command handling must occur each cycle. Thus, a loop embedded statements are appropriately placed and required per iteration. Does the code in the loop avoid manipulating the index variable or using it upon exit from the loop? Yes, the do while does not use an index variable. User interaction is handled through the selection string, and loop control depends solely on the input comparison. There's no risk of accidental index manipulation. Now let's go through the checklist. Yes, all switch and if-else blocks in driver class are well structured. Yes, the menu system uses the switch to ensure expected inputs are efficiently handled. Yes, the default block in driver class provides fallback for invalid menu options. Yes, menu switch statements include a default clause. Yes, the main loop terminates in case somebody types the Q. Not applicable. Nope. There's no input collection or menu logic that must remain inside the loop. And nope. And oh, yes, there's no indexing use. We're gonna look at the next checklist, defensive programming. Now let's go back to our code. Now we're gonna go through the list of the defensive programming. Are indexes, pointers, and subscripts tested against arrays, records, or file bonds? There's no files used in this program, so it's not applicable. Are imported data and input arguments tested for validity and completeness? Yes, when you enter new animal data, as shown here, it will check against the whitelist of valid species and the program refuses input outside the range. Are all output variables assigned? Yes, all variables in constructors and print statement are assigned properly, like on the driver class. Are the correct data operated in each statement? Yes. When entering new animal data, the code prompts the user for all required fields and validates inputs. For example, monkey species are checked against the whitelist of valid species and the program refuses input outside the range. This ensures data integrity. Next item on the checklist is: are the correct data operated on in each statement? Yes. Getter-setter access followed expected logic. In every memory allocation deallocated, it is handled by Java, so no explicit deallocation is necessary. Are timeouts or error traps used for external device? Not applicable. Are files checked for existence before attempting to access them? There's no file, so it's not applicable as well. Are files and devices left in the correct state upon program termination? It's not applicable as well. Let's go to the defensive programming checklist now. No, and this is not applicable. No array or index manipulation present. No imported data. Yes. All variables in constructor and print statement are assigned appropriately. Yes, the data is following the logic. This is nope. Java handles the allocation, so no explicit deallocation is necessary. Timeouts, error traps are not applicable. There are no files, so it's not applicable, and no files, not applicable. We tested the program to see its functionality, and as you can see, on our testing menu, we have an option from 1 through 6 and Q. So we were successfully in adding a new dog and a new monkey that wasn't repeated in the list. And we tested the options 4, 5, and 6, which shows functionality pending as expected since the methods are stubs. And we exit the program gracefully pressing the Q as well. The Grazioso Salvare project successfully meets many baseline requirements for a console-based rescue system. However, enhancement in the design modularity, data validation, and persistent storage will elevate this project for production use and professional standards. This review identifies those areas and defines next steps aligned to course outcomes in software design, data structure, and database handling. By enhancement for software engineering and design is I will refactor the intake methods to reduce redundancy using helper methods for input. I will also modularize main into smaller methods like handle menu and process input to increase readability and reusability. My enhancement plan in algorithms and data structure is that I will replace string variables with numeric types. Like for instance, for weight, for average, height. I plan to implement a hash set to speed up duplicate name detection and add indexes for faster searching. For my database enhancement, I plan to integrate a lightweight embedded database like SQLite. This will support persistent storage for dogs and monkeys and enable full CRUD operations. I will create a data access object class for dog and monkey and separate logic for storage to follow a clean architecture. And this concludes my code video review. Thank you.